Welcome everyone to the question and answer water cooler about the United States Regional Science Fairs. And this is really geared toward teachers who may want to participate in these great events. So I'll start off with first of all acknowledging that the work was funded by the National Science Foundation and the grant number is there. And of course, any opinion, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed are those of the author, which would be me this time, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation. So I'm really excited about the United States Regional Science Fairs, and I think the best way to start off this water cooler is by talking about the 5 W's. So the 5 W's, the why, the who, the what, the where, and the when. And we're going to cover each of these. The first one would be the why. And what I want to say about that is, in case you haven't picked up by now, my name is Jennifer Bourgeault. I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. I'm the United States Country Coordinator, but I've been with Globe for many years, and we won't say how many. But I came from a teaching background. My undergraduate was in science. My graduate degree was in teaching, and I was a teacher for a number of years in high school. And the reason why I wanted to teach was because I had a love for science. And what I realized as a new teacher was that it was really hard to do science the way I had been doing it in college and transfer that to the classroom because of all the other things that I was learning at the same time about teaching. And what I also didn't want to do, but what ended up happening, is we did that big research report at the end of the year. And it was great. The students did great. But I really felt like I wanted to be doing more of what we were doing in that final project all year long. And we just didn't have time, and I didn't have the experience to do it. So I started thinking about that as we were doing this grant, and I thought what we really want to do is have those skills be developed all year long, those science practices, and have these little opportunities. Instead of getting the big gift for your birthday that comes once a year, I wanted those little gifts all year long. And so those little gifts would be these little field investigations all year long. That's sort of my idea for what I wanted my classroom to look like. And I've also been working with teachers through a math science partnership grant from the New Hampshire Department of Education for a number of years. And we use something called an innovation configuration map to help teachers visualize what they want the science in their classroom to look like. So this is an example of what they worked up for how science would look in their classrooms. Now these were K through 8 teachers. So you have to keep that in mind that these are also elementary school teachers. But if you look in that variation 1, and I know it's hard to see here, but if you look down, one of those components is the use of inquiry inside and outside the classroom. So getting outside was a part of their vision. The other thing is time was also a part of their vision in saying that science occurred at least daily. And then there was also 2 hours of science time per week in those different grade levels. So they were really calling out how much time they should spend in science for each of those grade levels. So this was again part of that vision that I wanted to transfer through the science fairs. So if we think about it that way, and if we don't think about it as this end result, the science fairs themselves are should be part of professional development and should be part of working those field investigations into the classroom year-round. So who are we going for? Who should we interest in this? We're hoping that it's teachers and students in grades 5 through 8 and 9 through 12, and those are the 2 grade bands, who want to study the environment and meet other students at the science fairs, and teachers meeting teachers to build a learning community. We also want to look for teachers, and we're hoping teachers who have not integrated field investigations into their classroom practice but really would like to. And the ones that just need the little bit of support and the ideas from the professional development that we're providing, along with the one-to-one support from the Globe partnerships and local scientists that you need in the classroom to do it. There is funding support for this. The funding support is for Globe partnerships to fund teacher-student teams who do not compete or participate in these other events. We have phenomenal teachers, phenomenal, who do Globe student research activities. They came to the Globe Learning Expedition. They submit research projects to the Globe website. They already do Globe student research competitions. We still want them to come, but the funding is going to primarily be focused on these teachers who have not had those experiences yet. So those will be the priority for funding. And if you've already done Intel Science Fair, the national and international science fairs, Google Science Fair, Science Olympiad, definitely we're interested in those teacher-student teams as well. So we're hoping to make this as inclusive as we possibly can. We want everyone to come. To what and when? Those are the next questions. The first part of this is something that I mentioned earlier, which is the Professional Development Webinar Series for Globe teachers. And this webinar series is for the U.S. Globe Regional Science Fairs, but also for teachers that may be participating in the Globe International Virtual Science Fair. So we want the professional development, and we hope that teachers use it worldwide to help them inform and help their students to submit to these other events as well. The timeline for the professional development series is we already had the first webinar, which was conducting field investigations, and that webinar has now been posted to the Globe YouTube channel. And what we're looking for now is a teacher who took that webinar and used some of the things that they learned in it in their classroom, or maybe tried out one of the activities in the guide itself. And we would love it if somebody wrote a blog post about that. And what we would do is link the blog post to the webinar. And we are hoping that maybe your first attempt isn't successful, and so we want to hear how it went. And this is the same with the rest of the webinars. How did it go? What worked well? What didn't work well? Because we're trying to build this professional learning community where we're learning from each other, and hopefully the things that you learned can be used in other classrooms, and then perhaps we can have other blog posts about how their own activities went, and hopefully have a discussion about some of these things that we're doing. The other upcoming webinars, the next one is December 2nd, and that is going to be on writing research questions, and Kevin Chakowski is going to be doing that one. The January 7th one on analyzing data is still a little up in the air, but I'm really excited about the January 20th one, which is going to be, Kate McNeil has done some really nice work on claims and evidence, and her grad student is going to be doing the webinar for that. Kate was a little too busy, but she highly recommended her PhD student, who will be graduating very shortly, to do the webinar for us on this, and I'm really excited to share that with you. And then we had the February 11th one too, so that I'm working on confirming those. So all of these will be confirmed shortly, and the dates and all the links will be on the Globe website on our U.S. Science Fairs landing page. So I'll show you that in a minute. So the PD and the blogs, just to talk about that a little bit more, is each PD webinar then will also cover an assessment piece, and we'll talk about we're using the Globe International Virtual Science Fair rubric for the Globe Regional US ones. So we will call out the pieces of the rubric during that webinar so you can see the relationship between the professional development and the rubric at that time. We'll also discuss other open-ended or performance assessments that we've used. We'll hopefully have other people bringing resources to the table on that. We'll talk about some science notebook entries potentially for those and how you can assess those notebook entries. I know in particular for the Globe, for the research question one, there's already a nice document on the Globe website that I use a lot with I actually used it yesterday, with my professional development here in New Hampshire. We'll also talk about scoring sheets and checklists. So any kind of assessment that we can include in there, and any sort of resources that we can include for each of those topics, we want to, again, bring all of those materials together. Let's see. Then each month, like I said, following a particular topic, we would love to have a teacher volunteer to blog about how that science practice was implemented. And we do have a stipend for that. So the other part of this what and when are the regional science fairs themselves. The timeline for these, it's firming up, which is great. March 10th and 11th, we have the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic Science Fair, and that'll be at NASA Goddard in Greenbelt, Maryland. March 11th is the Globe International Virtual Science Fair submission. So the nice thing about that is students that are going to the March 10th one at NASA Goddard at the same time can be submitting to the International Virtual Science Fair, because these will both be about the same time. What's nice about the ones after that is that the Globe International Virtual Science Fair submissions, your students could submit to that March 11th one, get some feedback on their project, and then improve it for one of the other later science fairs if that's the one they're going to go to. So there's advantages to both. The two that we are still confirming dates on are the Pacific one, which will be in California around LA, and the Southeast one, which we're looking at, I believe we are looking at Mississippi for that one, and that may be May 6th and 7th or that weekend. So that's the one, those are the two that I'm still waiting on confirmation of the dates. The Midwest Science Fair at the University of Toledo is May 13th and 14th. There are two of them, the weekend of May 20th and 21st, the one in the Northwest at the World Forestry Center and the one in the Southwest at the University of Texas in Houston, and that's at the satellite campus. June and July will be evaluation and reporting, so that's not as important for teachers to know. But to determine where you're going, this is the map that we're using. Probably and the question that may come up and that I'll answer right away is that if you are from the Southeast. You will be going to the Southeast one. I'm sorry, but you will not be going to the one at NASA Goddard, because that's the one in the Northeast. So we really want to stick to those regions. So that's, if you wanted to look up your state and then figure out where you're going. But still, these will be really great events. And what they look like, and I'm just going to show you a draft agenda. Right now, each region and each set of partners are coming up with their own agenda and moving it around. But the basic idea behind that is that it's a day and a half with arrival and setup and a group dinner and a welcome icebreaker. The next day, having breakfast, having the posters and the judging, lunch together as a group, and then having breakout groups where students have their own kind of time to get together and work, and then teachers have their own, and then finally partners have their own time for networking and hopefully building these regional partnerships. And then awards, evaluation, and closing, and then everybody is out of there. So that's the general agenda, but again, depending on which one you're going to, your agenda may be different. But the pieces will all be there. The other thing I wanted to just spend some time on before I open it for questions is evaluation. The evaluation is going to be done through two people here at the University of New Hampshire. And along with typical workshop assessments, we are also going to be measuring success, attitudes towards, confidence in, and skills for conducting student science research investigations. What we really want to figure out is if participating in a Globe Science Fair makes a difference. And does the professional development and that work with a local scientist and a partner help? And this is not, this evaluation itself, this is a conference proposal. This is a conference grant. So we're not looking for a robust evaluation in terms of we only have 1 year and this is one event. But we are looking to see if it makes that difference, if coming to the science fair and talking with other students makes a huge difference or not. The other piece that I just want to explain briefly is that we're using something called passive consent. And passive consent means that we are going to be sending a letter home with the students that are participating in this. There's going to be a link to a YouTube video that will show me explaining the passive consent. And hopefully students and their parents will view it together. And passive consent means that if they do not want to participate in the research portion of the project, then they send back the letter saying they do not want to participate in that part of it. If they do not send back that letter, then that means that they are consenting to participate in the research. So the other part about this that I just want to highlight is the program evaluation and research are separate components. And teachers and students will not have to do any additional work in addition to the evaluation activities. You're just giving the research team permission to include the responses in the analysis of the project. So then the results can be used in publications, reports, or presentations. So there is no additional work, though. We still need everyone to participate in the evaluation because that's a part of our project. It's the research portion that we need the consent for. Participation in the study is strictly voluntary. If teachers or students refuse to participate, there will be no penalty or negative consequences. it will not affect your relations with the GLOBE program or its partners. And if you're a student, it will not affect your grade in the class. And students and teachers are free to withdraw at any time for whatever reason. There's no penalty or loss of benefits for not taking part or for stopping participation. And the participation in the rest of the program, including the science fairs, is not dependent upon participation in the research study. So now that I've said that, what is the evaluation? What are people committing to? So teachers are committing to 2 online questionnaires prior to participating in the professional development. It's a really quick questionnaire, and then there's an end-of-year questionnaire, again, about the professional development and to the extent of how you used what was offered. Students are given 3 questionnaires, a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, and then a paper-based exit questionnaire at the science fair itself. What we would like is, ideally, not all of the students would go, but all, because there may not be enough funding for them to bring everybody. But if your students as a class start working on these field investigations, and so you're working with all of the students in your class or even in your classes, that they all take the questionnaires, and then the pre and the post one. And then just the students that come to the science fair itself would take that exit questionnaire. And so therefore we are collecting a lot more data on looking at the students that came to the science fair and the students that didn't come to the science fair, and then again what effect that had on the students. So that would be the ideal situation. But the more data we have, the better. So the next question is, what is the teacher committing to? So they are committing to the evaluation, not the research. That's strictly voluntary, but they are committing to evaluating the grant. We're also asking in a Google Doc how and to what extent they will implement the classroom innovations, and a plan for choosing and developing a team of students to attend if not all of them will be attending. And also if there is another national venue that they may want to enter in the future. And we're also hoping that all of the teachers that participate enter student projects in the International Virtual Science Fair. So even though they only bring 1 or 2 teams to the regional science fair and the United States one, we're hoping that they may have 6 or 7 entries in the International Virtual Science Fair because they're all going to be working. So maybe only the class votes for the top 2 to go to the regional science fair, but yet 6 or 7 entries go to the International Virtual Science Fair. And we're also asking for a brief statement on how a teacher could assist the mentoring partnership in expanding this professional learning community locally. We're really looking for feedback too on, is this a valuable professional development series? Is this something that we should continue doing? Is this kind of support something that teachers have time for, and do they find it useful? And that is all I had in my presentation. So I would just like to open it up for your questions and answers. It looks like we don't have a lot of people. So if you wanted to raise your hand or use the chat window, that's fine, but I think we can also manage the number that we have here. So I will take questions at this time.
Thanks, Jen. This is Jessica from Virginia.
Yes.
So if a teacher is interested, what's really the first thing they need to do? Are they to reach out to the partner, or how does that work?
That is an excellent question, Jessica. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to share my application, which is Firefox. And can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
It says United States Regional Science Fairs.
Mhm.
Okay. So the first thing to do is to go to this United States Regional Science Fairs. So if you go to the United States page, and under events, so here's the United States page. Under events, there will be the webinars and also a link for the United States Regional Science Fairs. If you scroll down, here is an interest form for teachers to fill out, and that has a drop-down box where it says, have you contacted your partner, or do you want them, or should we connect you with them? So all the teachers that have been interested to this point, we've been able to share their information with a local partner so that they can get connected to their local partner. You can also, if you have a great relationship with your Globe partner and you just recently talked to them, then you can go ahead and reach out to them first. But we do like to have this form filled out so we make sure you are now included in any further communication about the science fairs. This is also a really important landing page where we'll keep everything updated. So right now, I need to update these other webinars that I've already confirmed. But what will also happen at this point is soon this will become a live link, which will go to logistics about the site, hotel rooms, an agenda, and any other information that teachers need to know, as well as links to a registration page, which students and teachers will need to fill out. So this is the page, and I've bookmarked this one. This is the page where everyone should go if they need to be updated about anything. So all the dates will be updated as we go. And this is also if you have a question about, and there are some partners that are no longer active, and so if you were trained by one of those partners, I would also encourage you to contact the geographic area lead. So for instance, if you are in the Southwest and your partnership is no longer active, you could also contact one of these 3 people to learn more about the science fair from them as well. And here, up here is my country coordinator email address as well. So you can contact me. Other questions?
Hey, it's Julie.
Hi, Julie.
So I wanted to say 2 things. One, if you go to globe.gov/US-science-fair, it'll take you to this page as well. I can't type it in the chat window right now, but so yeah, it should be an easier URL to find rather than going to the event page on there.
So it's globe.gov.
And then US-science-fair. There.
All right. So now we have a shortcut.
Yes, it's a little easier to find. But I wanted to, you brought up a point earlier about teachers attending this. What are your thoughts on teachers who are brand new to science fairs? Do you think this would be a competitive thing, or do you think it's be more supportive, or what do you consider for a first-time teacher doing science fairs?
That is a great question. I think of this as a supportive science fair. I actually think of this more as a student research conference where the rubric itself that we use, so if you go down here, we're using this Globe International Virtual Science Fair rubric. That also includes badges, which really bring in a lot of this idea about what science is. Does it include engineering? Does it include the community? Does it include work with a scientist? So, and I think the rubric itself is also more supportive for first-time teachers. So we're all trying to learn together, but I'm really trying to, I hope teachers have the idea that this is definitely more of a supportive and learning how to use Globe in your classroom in again, those little presents along the way versus the big birthday present once a year. So how can we use Globe and where can we fit it in to our curriculum today and tomorrow and the next day? And maybe we don't do it for a couple more days, but are there pieces of Globe that fit into my curriculum where I can get them outside investigating just our environment out here, rather than some of those big science fairs where it's one project, it takes the whole year, and we're at the end and it's a big blue ribbon. I'm for 20 blue ribbons instead. So I think that hopefully answers your question, Julie, that it is for first-timers. It really is, and we're all going to make mistakes along the way. When I had a group that I took to Envirothon, and the first year, my team did not want to compete because they didn't know what it was like. And they prepared and they were ready to go, but they didn't want to compete because they were nervous. So to me, this is for that team that I tried to bring to Envirothon. And they went, and then they walked away saying, we could have easily competed. So this is for all of those teams that are, I'm not sure if I can compete. In this one, you definitely can.
Thanks. Hey, Jen?
Yes.
Jen, this is Dave from Detroit. And, you know, when the teachers do their survey, the first survey, you were saying that it's done prior to the support that's provided. You know, you were talking about the supportive environment. What kind of support can they expect? And then a second piece, too, that kind of ties in with new teachers. One of the things that we're finding is that we've had teachers who have been very interested and very involved, but as various situations come up with their personal lives, they may not have as much time now to devote to this type of project and maybe need some support. So it's kind of like the opposite extreme where they've been active but could use more support now as they have less time to be able to do that. So kind of a two-part question. One, after they do the survey, what kind of support should they expect? And then secondly, what about those that are kind of going through a change in their teaching and need additional support?
So that would be something that I would hope the partnership and the teacher would discuss. So the first part of your question, after they do the survey and that pre-test, what teachers can definitely do, and all teachers in the Globe program and actually even outside the Globe program can do, are watch the webinars or participate in the webinars and on each of those different topics, and use the pages that we've set up for that, with where we've really kind of repackaged the resources and put in links to the resources for each of those. So it's more of a self-guided professional development where they can come to a webinar, they can look at the different resources. And then what we hope is that through the blog posts and learning from each other, but also by contacting their partner or a local scientist, they can get additional support. So say that, I know with Kevin's webinar on research questions, he's really hoping that teachers bring questions and examples of student questions that he can kind of work with the teachers on to fine-tune those questions to talk about which ones would be a great research question, and which ones would we need to fine-tune in order for students to do research with that question. So it's more, I would hope, of that kind of experience for teachers where they can consult with a GLOBE partner or a scientist on what they're doing in the classroom. So say they're having trouble with, I'm not sure if this is a good research question. I don't think it is. Can you help me to bring this back to my students? And what are the questions I need to ask in order to help my students come up with a better question? So those are the kinds of things that we're hoping to be able to provide to teachers along the way, is that kind of support. And it's not, teachers are very busy. So we're hoping this is something that they work on slowly and at their own pace. So for those teachers that, does that answer your first question, Dave?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
So I'm hoping that the partners are willing to do that, and I'm willing also to kind of approach partners that are, if teachers don't have a partner in their local area, I'm hoping to help them connect to one who could have that availability to help them. For the second question, which was about a teacher that was active and now is coming back, I think that this is a great opportunity for them to come back. We're also open to teachers that are doing GLOBE in after-school programs and with clubs. So those would both qualify. Without, knowing particular details, then I think this is a great opportunity for people to, even if you're working with one teacher and 2 or 3 students, that is fine too. So if the classroom situation is not ideal, but if there's perhaps another group of students that they could work with and bring, that would also qualify for this. Does that help, Dave?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I did bring up on the screen an example of the rubric that we're using. So if you look at the element and the level, you'll see that it's superior, good, progressing, and basic. Or maybe I should have read that the other way. Basic, progressing, good, and superior. So even the rubric itself, I think, lends itself to the language showing that this is for first timers. I mean, progressing is still, it's still language. There's no failure here. So I think people should think of it like that. Having a basic, having the abstract present, having the student research question is asked. I think that I'm hoping that we'll also be able to discuss something that came out in NSTA during Kevin's on research questions about hypotheses. There was a really nice article in NSTA, the newspaper one, about hypotheses and predictions. So I'm hoping that we can also bring that up and bring that in to our discussion in December. Are there more questions?
Jen, this is Todd. I just had a quick one. Is it possible to have to show the the shortcut link again to the science fairs?
Yes. Let's do.
Sorry, thank you.
So it's U.S. GLOBE.
Yeah. I got part of it. Globe.gov.
Globe.gov, U.S. dash science dash fair.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there more questions? or anything that I didn't make clear enough.
Do I just jump in if I have a question?
Yes.
Okay. This is Amber in the Metro Detroit area. I heard you say something like this, and I'm just trying to clarify. If this is something I don't do as a whole class, could this be done after school with a small interested group?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that clarifies.
And we would love it if they still did the pre and the post test and did all the evaluation activities. I mean, that's just a part of our grant funding. We have to evaluate.
Right. Right, and that's when you were talking in the beginning, I wasn't sure, based on like the evaluative piece, if that would be okay just to have a small group.
It absolutely is.
Okay.
Because so this is the first time we've ever done this.
Okay.
And so we're really trying to figure out what are the different ways that people could implement this. Because once we know that, we can also try and figure out what is the best model to have. And I do know that each of the different regions is really, they have different ideas about how they're going to go, and each of the different partnerships are actually, many of them are going about this very differently in terms of recruiting teachers. One of the partnerships is having a statewide competition before they go to the regional one. So
okay.
everybody is doing it very differently, and right now I think it's a great way to go about this, that we're all experimenting, we're all trying to, the goals are the same at the end. It's how we get there may take 20 different directions, but as long as we end up at the same place, I think that's more valuable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. More questions? So it doesn't sound like there's any other questions. So it sounds like, Amber, you would be going to the one in University of Toledo.
Yes, that's what David Bidlowski had said.
Yes, that is sure to be a good one.
Okay.
And then, let's see, Jessica and Todd, you would be going to the one at NASA Goddard.
Okay.
And Julie, you would be off to Houston. Wouldn't that be nice?
Sure.
And Anne, I think you would also be going to NASA Goddard. And I think that might be it that's on the, was there somebody else on the phone? But the one in, I would consider moving to Oregon to go to the World Forestry Center. If anybody has a choice between now and then, because I hear it's beautiful. They're really talking about how beautiful it is. We'll take pictures. Any other questions? Because we can end early. So what I would recommend then for any teachers that are on the line, I'm going to be posting this on the Globe Implementation Office YouTube site, and I will make sure I put a link to the Google form for teachers, because after they've watched this, they won't be able to say no. And to follow that Google form so that we can make sure we have all these people registered that are now interested in doing this. And then you will be getting a link, and that link will go to an evaluation page where you'll find the consent forms or the passive consent forms so that teachers can get those sent out to their students. And also links that they will need for the other information, such as where the online assessments are for their students and the online pre-assessment for teachers, or the questionnaire for teachers would be. And everything is essentially being done online if we can do that. And if we have to do anything in paper, that's fine as well. We'll just need to know that. So all of that evaluation will be done here through the University of New Hampshire. We will ask teachers, we have to make sure that you've given out that passive consent form and that everybody has the understanding that the research portion is the work is the same as the evaluation, but we really need to make sure that everyone was informed about how to opt out of the research portion of it. So even if you are doing, again, if you're doing the project at all, the evaluation and the research is the same amount of work. But you can opt out of the research portion. And so we'll just make sure we follow up with everybody with all the links that you need. And the best place, again, to go is that U.S. Regional Science Fair landing page. So if you check that, I'm updating it every couple days. As soon as new information comes in, I update that page. So you can check there. And if there's no other questions, I'll count to 10. All right, then that's it. And I hope to see you all back for the next webinar, which again will be December 2nd on writing research questions with Kevin Schakowsky, and I will be updating that on the webpage today or tomorrow. So you'll have the opportunity to click in and register for that after that time. And between now and then, have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, everybody, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.